Welcome to the NextPatient podcast, where we are exploring the real challenges and opportunities facing today's leaders in the physical therapy/rehab clinic industry. I'm your host, and today I'm joined by Jocelyne Pelchat, president and founder of Cornerstone Movement Institute. Jocelyne, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Marianne.
Of course. And so to start off with your kind of personal journey, what originally drew you into the movement and rehab space, and what eventually led you to actually creating Cornerstone Movement Institute?
It's a very loaded question. Um, okay, so I've been teaching now almost 14 years. And I think that when I first started teaching, it was something that I did at first for myself because it felt so good in my own body. And I was having sort of a questioning sort of what I was doing. I was working in the corporate world, and I thought, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? And I couldn't see any satisfaction in doing that. And then I thought, why would I not do what I enjoy doing for myself for a living? And then I joined a teacher training school in Toronto. I did my training there. And then from there on, right away opened up a business. So it was a small little business, and I would rent studio space and in like a dance studio or in a kickboxing studio, and then try to build a clientele from there. I think that, that was a slow process and difficult at times. And for any business owner starting out, you're going to have to jump through a lot of hurdles, and you have to be really consistent and persistent, even when you think it's not going to work. You have to just keep at it, because it's not easy in the first little bit, but then eventually people start to refer and people start to come to see you, and then that's when this is an industry of word of mouth. So no amount of marketing, door hangers, newspaper ads, whatever. No, none of that ever worked for me. It was truly word of mouth. So it's the service you provide and the experience that people leave with, and then that can help to sustain clients, clientele. From there, my daughter had scoliosis, and that's how I started to sort of lean into spine. And I wanted to help her originally to see how I could, understand her condition a little bit better. And then from there, I just did a lot of continuing education courses to, make my, I'm looking for the word in English, to deepen my knowledge for any spine conditions. And then I ended up, the first specialization was working with the spine. And then that's how people started coming to me for, disc herniations, scoliosis, spondylolisthesis, ankylosing spondylitis, all the Latin terms for spine conditions. And then I just got more and more knowledgeable there. And then, you sort of, when you hone in on something, then you sort of start to, go down the rabbit hole, and you learn more and more about it, and in ways that what I was currently doing could help people with those conditions. And then that's where I think that I started to understand a diagnosis to be something very different from one person to another. And I would have a client come in with a diagnosis of a spine herniation at level, I don't know, L4, L5, and they were bedridden. They couldn't move. And then, it was extremely painful, and everything was affected in their life. And then I would have another client come in with the exact same diagnosis on paper, but they could do everything. And I thought, well, I guess at that point, I didn't fully understand that a diagnosis is, simply a radiologist report, and that it's a human's perception of what a scan is, right? And then, and not to say that that's not valid, it is, but I didn't really understand at that point that the person's perspective on that diagnosis has a huge impact on how they're going to respond to it and be able to adapt and deal with it. So that's when the dive into neuroscience came in, and then I went to back to school and I obtained a master's in neuroscience because I wanted to understand what was happening, why it was so different from one individual to another. And then with that comes a big sort of portion of psychology, and then you get to know people's history and their the way they were brought up and the way that they perceive the world and they perceive things to come into their lives, and that history has a huge impact on how they deal with most of these things. So that's where it started out as like, oh, this feels great for me, and then it ended up being like, oh my God, we're working with brains and bodies and perception and history and genetics and all of that. So it's come a long way in those 14 years, but it's been a constant learning experience where I keep diving in to more knowledge and to try to understand my clients better so I can help them better. Because I think that ultimately, one of the big parts of being in this industry is being able to provide care for the individual, and it's not a one-stop shop. It's not like, oh, here for this condition we're going to give you this exercise. It doesn't always apply for each individual, so you really have to get to know the person that you're working with, and it becomes a collaboration. It becomes a collaboration between myself and the client, because it's, how does this feel? What do you think about this? Like, it's not just me dictating, here is what I want you to do and you'll feel better. It becomes this relationship where we're working together. So I think that makes a big difference in somebody's healing and well-being, and optimally. I think that was a very big answer to your question.
I loved it. I absolutely
Yeah.
loved it. Yeah, no, but that last point, definitely building off of teamwork, right? It's a partnership when you're really going into it. It's not,
Yeah.
come,
Yeah.
let me tell you what you're gonna do today.
Yeah. It's not I think that we become facilitators in a way, but like I become their biggest cheerleader, but I am not there to tell them what to do. We build together, and we can make suggestions, and we kind of some things are trial and error. Yes, I have the foundation. I'm not just pulling things out of the sky and be like, let's see what works, right? It's, I have a foundation of knowledge, but each individual is so different. Then textbook is never accurate anymore, right? You need the textbook. You need to know that stuff because that's where the foundation is. That's your initial knowledge. But then working with each individual is like, well, this may not work, but let's try this way and then see if that feels better, right? Because ultimately, you don't want the person to injure themselves, and you want them to leave feeling better and stronger. And that's the work.
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny. We had just had a host for Dr. Leor from Next Level, and he was touching on that of like there's not actually an answer. Everything, every approach that you try to use in terms of therapy, you're always like, maybe this is gonna work. And you're
Yeah,
gonna have to keep using that trial and error to end up at, okay, one of these is gonna work, but you're never
yeah,
for certain
yeah.
because diagnosis will change between every single person.
And even treatments, like I, in my experience, I have gotten to work and to meet different individuals of different, similar industries, whether it be yoga, chiro, physio, And sometimes we get to talking, and then I realize that we're working with healing, but we weren't trained the same way. And what I might think of as my truth actually differs from somebody else's depending on the school that they went to. So we'll have a different understanding of anatomy, and none of them is incorrect and none of them is correct. It will always be that's how we learn, and that is true for us. But then the individual that we're working with, if they don't resonate to me or to what I've learned, or the way that I work in studio, but they will with those. And ultimately, that's what works. We need someone for everyone. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not about, oh, that's you're wrong. It's no, it's you, that's how you learned it. So who am I to say? Like, and if you go on websites, it's the exact same thing. You'll go on one reputable website, and I'm not going to say names, but and it will differ from another reputable website, and you're kind of like, and I'm talking in detail, whether it's specific muscles or attachments, and sometimes it gets to be a little confusing, and you're like, well, who's right? And well, maybe all of them are. I don't know. we I got the opportunity to dissect and cadavers. So we did cadaver work with fresh cadavers, and even in that work, found that the cadavers that we were working with, so we have our textbook anatomy, the IT band should attach to this part here in the body. And then, but with somebody's, our cadaver had ankylosing spondylitis, which is a condition where the spine fuses together, the vertebrae fuse together. Very, very painful, very inflammatory, usually on a cocktail of medication. And it changes their gait. It changes mentally. It really wears you down because you're in constant pain all the time. So it's not just physical, but there's the whole psychological aspect to it as well. But as a result, her whole structure in her leg had changed. She had her IT band went all the way down to her ankle, and that, like, you're kind of like, that's unique and unique to that individual, and that's how her body adapted to compensate probably for the pain she was feeling, or for the inefficient firing of different muscles due to the inflammation. Who knows? Like, any story you can tell is sort of a let's pin the tail on the donkey, see who gets it, right? Like, we don't know. We can't ask her. So, right? But at
Yeah.
that, we're working with observation, and we're working with what's in front of us, and we're making anecdotes, but it's all just learning. And you're like, wow, we are so not what we think we are. We're so very different once you take off the layers and you start to look inside, and it's based on how our bodies adapt.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
honestly, we're just all doing the best we can.
Yeah, of course. Seriously. But that's really interesting. And especially, I want to go into that in terms of the perception aspect of it. And this is really because I'm truly curious about how the mind-body connection always type kind of works. So obviously, people are put into different experiences through their environment, right? And you're saying that through their different environments, through their different interactions, through their whole life, that's how the body adapts and might be responding to things differently than somebody else. So going back to your first example of someone with the same exact diagnosis, one of them was walking and the other one was bedridden, is it, and I'm assuming not, but is it like a cognizant, not a cognizant ability, but would that person ever be able to tailor their mind to say, okay, yeah, let me rewire kind of that nervous system aspect and be like, through certain type of work, would they ever be able to get to how the other person reacted from it?
I think that it's I don't want to be presumptuous, but I think that yes, I think that we can change our mind. I think that the way that we perceive things, oh, I wanted to put this on that do not disturb. I'm so sorry. Um, the way that we perceive things can definitely be changed, and a lot of it, and there's so much work right now on neuroplasticity and um, that what we think we can make happen, and so I'm not going to be repetitive with all that work, and there's some great um, literature out there and some fantastic science behind it. um, I do believe that what we tell ourselves, we are cellular, our body listens to it. We have a very intimate relationship between our brain and our body, and the messaging comes from our environment. So a lot of it comes from the way we're raised and the way that we our developmental years. So as much as we can do therapy to heal, right? When something didn't go that great in our developmental years, the way that we resolve or perspective on these changes as we get older, I do believe that can also be adapted. I honestly do believe so.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Yeah, because I am a big believer, but I have none of the science to back that up. So I'm glad I can have someone that has a full master's in it that kind of agrees. And that's interesting to me because, well, I'm interested to know how do you kind of and do you integrate that mind-body connection in your clinic?
So a lot of it, I think, for starters, when you work with people with a lot of pain or discomfort, the very first thing is to make them comfortable. And then secondly, is to make them feel seen and heard. And I think that those aspects of a treatment or a session are what's often missing, because a lot of clinicians are just, I know my stuff, therefore I will treat you, or I will fix you, or I will, and they're missing the component about the relationship that you build. And I do believe that I will always be a student of life, right? Because I might know a lot, but I also feel like I don't know anything. I'm always learning something new, and that sometimes negates what I thought I knew. So the more open my mind can be, and the more receptive I can be to helping somebody heal and feel their best. I think that that's a big component. And I don't think I'm answering your question properly here. I think I might have diverted. But I think that the big component of it, yes, the mind body, is a lot of it is really connecting with that individual at first, and then and not trying to feed everything that I know into that one session, right? It's not about, oh, I'm going to show you how knowledgeable I am. Let's first see how you're doing, and let's teach you how to breathe, right? So number one, let's start with that, because you'd be amazed at how people don't breathe properly, and as a result don't employ the full capacity for their diaphragm. As a result, their shoulders can't fully relax, they're always kind of up here, and then this gets involved, and then they start to get neck pain, and then they start to get headaches, and it's all coming from not breathing properly. So if we take a moment to relax, and it's easier said than done in this rat race of a world that we live in right now, where you always have to be two steps ahead because things are moving so fast, that trying to remember to take a step back and be like, okay, hold on, I don't need to be on my phone. I don't need to be, looking and seeing what everything that's going on in the world right now. I can just be outside in nature and breathing properly, and maybe that's going to help me quite a bit. So back to the mind body is getting them to be present even in those simple things that we do, right? And can you pay attention to what your body is doing right now? A person doesn't know how to breathe, but doesn't know they don't know how to breathe, comes in here, and when they're breathing, they're all in here. It's like I ask them to take a deep breath, and they're like, and everything lifts up like that. And I'm like, you're not supposed to breathe that way. Yes, your lungs live in your ribs, but they should be expanding out, and the belly is involved and all of that. So, bringing that mind body connection right away from the start is let's focus on what you're doing, very essential basics, and let's start there. Let's start there. Let's pay attention. What is your body doing right now? And a lot of people don't know. This is my favorite saying. People have zero interest in learning anything about their body. And it's like, for me, I'm a kinetic person, so I have all of the interest in learning about my body. And it was Tom Myers actually that said kinetic quotient, so KQ, not IQ, not EQ. He called it KQ. And I thought that was brilliant because some of us may not have extremely high IQ, but we have really strong kinetic awareness. And I am like that. And I think that a lot of kids in school may also have that because for them, sitting and being still is just not working for them. But if you get them moving and you get them feeling, and then they can focus. So it's not necessarily right away a clinical thing. They may just be stronger in this different segment of intelligence, right? They have a really high intelligence when it comes to movement or action or activity. So it's instead of being so compartmentalized and putting people in different blocks, maybe we start to look at this different, kinetic awareness as a form of intelligence. And I do believe that a lot of people don't have that. And what the favorite thing that I like to think of is, I don't know anything about cars. Couldn't care less. I want my car to bring me from point A to point B. And when it goes wrong, I bring it to the garage and I'm like, can you fix this? And then, they charge me a bill, I pay it, and off I go. People are like that with their bodies. They don't pay any attention to it. They take it for granted until it falters. They go to the doctor and they're like, something's wrong, and they give them medication, and then off they go, take the meds, and off they go. And they have zero intent on learning more about their body. But this is your house. This is where you live in. And if you don't start to take care of the house that you live in, well, it's not the same as a car. Like you can't just buy a new one, right? So it's a little more personal. So I think that we should be more invested in learning more about our bodies and how we work and how um, you know, how to avoid illnesses and conditions and things like that, because the information's out there for us. It's not it's just that we need that interest, and people don't have that, not yet. And I think the more we put this information out there and being like, hey, it's available to all of you, like you don't need a PhD, like it's not rocket science. It's actually not that hard to understand, but we need to breathe.
Yeah, definitely gonna look into that. So let's talk about obviously your unique approaches at Cornerstone Movement. Would you say that's kind of one of your strongest unique approaches that you use?
I do believe that we've built our reputation as being specialists at the studio, and I think that's where we truly differ. Um, let's face it, our industry in Pilates is blown up. It's a little bit all over the place right now without regulating body, or governing agency that says this is truly Pilates, this isn't. It kind of just blew up. It vomited, and it's a little bit all over the place, and everybody's calling it Pilates, but it's not all Pilates. As you know, Pilates was a man. Joseph Pilates was a man. He's created this method when he was in the internment camp in Nakalo, Isle of Man during World War One. And they had, oh, I don't remember exactly how many internees they had, but he was there for 4 years. And they lived in a small space, and they had these little, um, I don't remember the name of what they call these areas, but sort of like enclosures. And they could only be within that enclosure. Like they couldn't talk to other people from other enclosure is not the right word, but other divisions, if you will. They could only talk to the people from their own, and they were about 1,000 per. So for 4 years, you could only truly talk to 1,000 people, right? So that's who he created the method for. A lot of those people ended up with severe depression. They called it black thoughts back then, um, because there was no diagnosis of depression, as you know. But black thoughts, it's kind of, it says it all, right? Your thoughts are black. Because you're not able to see your family, you're not able to go to work, you're not able to do the things that you used to do. You're in an internment camp, and then it affects your mood. And this method of exercise was created to get people to be healthy every day and to be active and to keep the depression away. And that's what this method was created for. And when he left the internment camp, he left where he was, and he went on to the US. And it was in the US with his new wife that he actually met on the ship coming in from Europe. Yeah, it's kind of wild story, but that's where he opened up the first studios out there, and he started working with dancers and rehabilitating dancers from their injuries. But the original method was a set of 34 different exercises that were done on the mat. And that's what he was doing with people. He eventually, like, there was mattresses in the internment camp. He pulled some of the springs out from the mattresses, attached them to the wall. When they were injured, he would get them to use the springs as resistance, which is kind of a wild story, but it's true. And that's how people got stronger and from their injuries. And it's just, thankfully it's been refined. We don't have a bunch of mattresses with springs attached to the walls. So when you walk into a studio, that might be a little daunting. But it's been, through many different companies, they've refined to the equipment. Like, it's excellent engineering nowadays. And but the true method remains those 34 exercises. And then from there, the exercises he created onto the Cadillac, which was the first piece of equipment that resembled the mattress and the springs. And then from there, the reformer. And the reformer, which is what's super popular nowadays and what everybody's calling Pilates, is not Pilates. It's a piece of equipment that Pilates is done on. But what is now known in this massive industry that everybody is, jumping on board right now and wanting to monetize is just the piece of equipment. It's just a reformer workout. It is not true Pilates. So I think that the importance is there for us to be able to stand and fight against what actually is Pilates, because it is a true form, kind of like the hybrid between physio and a workout. It's so science-based. It has such solid background and foundational work that to lose that to this big fitness sort of trend right now, it's just important that we're like, okay, this is great. And I love that you're using the reformer, but it's not Pilates. Let's not lose sight of what Pilates is, right? So I think that that's really important for us to, shout it on the top of buildings if we need to. But I have nothing against people using the equipment and it being trendy and things like that, because it's definitely brought the word to people's mouths, because they used to think, is that like yoga? No, it's not like yoga. It's different. But now everybody's saying it and doing it, but it's not actually Pilates. So, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure you get that question quite often, don't you?
The true method is it's precise. It's this mind body connection, again, to bring it back to what you said. It's this mind body connection that really gets you to think about all of the different parts of the body when you're moving. And it's, for example, you'll be doing a roll down on the Cadillac, you're holding on to the bar, and you're basically holding on to a wooden roll bar, kind of like if you're holding on to motorcycle handles, right? And then, but you have to press down. And the first part of the pressing down is to make sure that the shoulder blades glide down, but it's also, to be specific, for the serratus anterior to connect to the external obliques and to come wrap around into the rectus and make sure that everything is like strong and connected into your superficial muscles and a little bit deeper, right? That's the first part. You haven't even started to move. Then you add your breath. And then you start to curl back, but you don't want to lose length in the spine and you want to be able to maintain that. But at the same time, you want the shoulders to stay down, the collarbones to stay wide, the spine to stay elongated, the breath to continue to flow, right? And the activation of like this whole connection underneath the arm. That's one exercise. I'm just going on and on. I haven't even started to, I'm not even down yet, right? That's the beauty of it. So when somebody connects to the exercise and connects to their body and feels so intricately every segment of the exercise and then has to breathe throughout, but also move with ease. None of it should be done with strain. It should actually feel easy, but hard at the same time because you're shaking.
Yeah, that's
Because
always
your
it, right?
muscles, yeah,
That's
that's
always it. But
Pilates, yeah.
well, that's what has
Yeah.
always taken me away from Pilates. I'm like, you know what? It's easy. You're lying. I was like, this is so hard. I was like, I've been an athlete for so long. Put me 10 minutes in a Pilates class, I can't do it. I can't do it.
But that's the thing, is that it's this underlying muscles. It's not those superficial big ones. It's, because I mean, we've had dancers, hockey players, like people that use the big muscles, right? And then they come here and they're like shaking. And it's not because they're not strong, it's because they haven't developed the foundation, right? So
Yeah,
you have your house, but you don't have your brick foundation to your house. So, you've got your walls, your drywall, your all of it. It's all there except the
yeah,
foundation. So it's and that's how injuries happen. So we start to work and we help build the foundation, and yeah, it's a process.
yeah, absolutely. I might have to be the one that needs to go back and build my bricks. I do not have fun in Pilates classes. But that is also that's the beauty of it, right? Like the beauty of it is how nitty-gritty you have to go into the details. And that's what I love that you focus on, because it is step by step. It is going back to the foundations that is actually going to give those patients that natural healing journey to come.
Yeah.
So, and speaking on, obviously you're coming across clients with a bunch of different personalities, right? Or different, they might need different approaches, they might need different motivations. How do you approach that strategy in terms of um, how do you adapt to their individual learning styles?
That's a really great question. I don't think I have the perfect solution for that, because I honestly believe that people will stay when they feel comfortable to stay and they like what they're getting. And I don't believe in changing the way that we do things to adapt to a person's personality. I almost prefer that person, if they're not getting what they need here, that they look for it elsewhere. And that's probably a horrible business tactic if I want to grow the business, but I want it to be organic and I want it to feel like we're giving them what they need and what they, we always say you give them what they want, but you sneak in what they need, right? And that was taught to me early on in my education, was that we can't force somebody to do only what we think they need. So we kind of sneak it in when they're not that interested in learning about it, because I'm not going to educate everybody about movement. Some of them don't want to know, they just want to move, and that's okay. But trust me, I will sneak in all the things that they need to get stronger into their bigger workouts, so they just don't have to know about what I'm doing. As long as they feel better, that's great, because you do have different personalities. Some people want to know more, some people don't care. They just want to come here and do the work, right? And then that's okay. That's okay. We're not trying to change people, but we're also not going to change who we are as a system. We'll just maybe change the delivery.
Right.
Yeah, because
Right.
we're always going to be really focused, and there's a reason as to why we're doing a specific thing, but I may not educate you on it, or I may, depending on the feedback that I get. But the people that want those big, hard, heavy workouts and are used to going to the gym, most of the time they don't stick around because I want to go faster, I want to go harder, I want to feel more, which is great, but they're just not going to get that here. So it's that I can't please everybody.
Right. That's
Yeah.
what's hard about retention, right? Going back to it being a partnership. It's like you have to have the
Yeah.
partnership and
But it's honoring the person, right? If this isn't their jam, then I'm like, well, go find what is, but keep moving, please, because I'm not going to try to sell you on this and be like, I'm way more of an energy person. So for me, if we vibe and there's a good energy, then I see this growing. But if you're like resistant or it's like pulling teeth, then I'm like, well, go find what you need, because maybe I'm not it. I'm not going to be for everybody, right? I mean, I do believe everybody needs Pilates, but that's a very biased personal opinion. I find that it's a great adjunct to everything else that we do, right? It helps you be stronger. It really strengthens trunk stabilizers that help keep you upright, that keep shoulders down, that keep, your head on top of it. It helps you feel like you're in your body. It's beautiful, but you got to want that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So looking ahead now, what new initiatives, directions, or innovations are on the horizon for Cornerstone?
We're working on the teacher training program. So we created something keeping in mind sort of everything that we talked about. So incorporating that into training, the next generation of instructors. And it's small, and it's, as everything I do, it's never for great big numbers. I'm very passionate about it, and I love teaching new students, to sort of like an outlook of to how I've learned, and then creating that or keeping on with that tradition of, this type of movement that is very restorative and rehabilitative, and can be advanced, right? It can be advanced. Like, we can do hard things, but really, really well, so that we don't injure ourselves. So there's so much mindfulness involved in how we move that it's never fast. It's kind of slow because you have to really pay attention to everything you're doing. But don't, trust me, there's shaking going on. So
Okay.
Pilates is hard. And so we're working on that and a continuing education program, so that once they've done their comprehensive teacher training, which is 3 levels, then they go on to do further education for, to become spine specialists or neuro specialists, or that's what we're working on right now. So that'll launch in the new year, And I think it's just about, if there's so many teacher training out there right now, because what has happened is with this great big spurt of Pilates studios, they needed instructors now, right? So they're creating these trainings that are very fast. So the teachers are teaching the exercise on a piece of equipment, so it doesn't really have any, a lot, I shouldn't say any. I've not seen the work that they've put in, but if it's done over a weekend, it's definitely not comprehensive enough. And they're okay to do it in big places, but they wouldn't be able to work in a small boutique studio that specializes in different conditions. So I would encourage those individuals that have done quickie trainings to do continuing education. That would definitely benefit them to understand different bodies a little bit better, so that they're not creating more injury.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that. And wrapping up, I know you just gave some advice, but wrapping up this episode, what is one piece of advice that you would give to other clinic owners or even coaches about maintaining great care while still staying adaptable to the industry?
Great care of my, it has to be what you want to do. Honestly, I don't know that this is advice, but I've never looked at this as a business and I'm just not a great business owner, to be fair, to be honest. I love what I do, and I love seeing people get stronger, and I love seeing people's lives change for the better. And as a result, I'm still in business, right? So have I done this to grow and be profitable? And no, no, like I'm not going to retire and move to, the Fiji Islands and live with, just sipping cocktails every day. I'm probably going to work till I'm, way past 65, but that's okay because I'm doing something that is really rewarding to me. So advice, I wouldn't say I have the best advice to give, but I definitely do it because you want to, and not do it because don't open a studio because you heard there was money to be made in a studio, right? Because I'm very put off by that. There, people that are opening studios and they're like, okay, we're gonna have 16 machines and at $40 a pop. Can you see how much what that's gonna bring in revenue? And I'm like, you're missing the mark. This was never what it was meant to be. So it just swallows up these small little boutique studios that have been in business for so many years. It's kind of like the big Walmarts of the world, right? It's, you're taken away from your little mom and pop shop. You're opening these big franchises. And then the ones that have made this their life, they suffer because everybody's going to the bigger, cheaper, so it's the same thing for small business owners. It's this constant, we're in the same type of business where if we're feeding only, like we're only working with a small number of people, not the great masses. To stay true to ourselves is really important, and to provide that service, because not everybody is looking for the big masses. We're going to have people that want small, that want intimate, that want welcoming, that you're not a number. We get to know everything about you, your dog's name, Speaking of dogs, they're welcome here. So really important. It's actually my 1 year gotcha day with my little chihuahua. So it's 1 year
Oh,
today. So it's a big day.
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So it's, um, I think that a lot of it is truly is do it because you love it.
I love that. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode. A huge thank you again, Jocelyne, for sharing such valuable insights. If you'd like to learn more about Cornerstone Movement Institute, head on over to their website or connect with them on their socials that will be linked below. We'll see you on the next episode of Next Patient.